Yo guys, hope you're good. I just wanted to go through the bass and transference, sort of following on from the other tutorials, and just go through in a little bit of detail what I'd done in order to sort of make some of the basses, etc. Unfortunately, some of it has been bounced out already, so I can't go through the full process of everything that I went through, but I can try my best to sort of talk through it. I think to start with, it'd probably be best just to look at the sub bass and just how I sort of made that really. It's quite a simple patch just with two sine waves basically. One that's pitched up by one semitone, so you get a bit of wobble and 70 cents. And then a little filter just to sort of cut off the mid, so there's, also boost a little bit here. A little bit of an envelope so it doesn't just drop in straight away and click. And a little bit of FM just to modulate it a little bit more. A little bit of soft clip, a little bit of, actually there's none of that on, and just a little bit of EQ. Now just quickly point out, it's a slightly oldish project, probably about a year or so, probably 18 months or so when I started it. So there is some old techniques in here that I wouldn't really use nowadays, but yeah, that sort of stuff, just how it goes sometimes. So basically I've used that, and then another little handy tool from Ableton, Max for Live, which is an envelope follower attached to the erosion. So in this case it sort of is on the amount. The parameters being controlled by a Max device, which is this envelope follower, and then it basically makes the amount wobble between 32 and 100% following the envelope of the sub. So just following the envelope of the sub basically. And I think that it really helps to add noise, but also to keep it shaped. There is an LFO tool which you can set the rate for and then select any parameter with as well. So that's also another really handy Max for Live tool, which I use this for the same technique. I think I showed it actually in when I was making the sub. So yeah, but here's kind of when I was using it in action. So yeah, for the bass, there's not loads and loads going on. In fact, actually quite a lot of this tune's resampling. Like I said back then, some older techniques, and it weren't necessarily things that I do now, but I do enjoy resampling and sampling. I think that samples are there for a reason and they should be used. Don't rip somebody off and just completely, use their sample or whatever, but I do think that, sampling can sometimes be extremely helpful, particularly, if you're looking for something in a specific key or something like that. So we've got a little bass here, just a little stab, which goes whoop. But what I've done is distorted it a lot here, just using a whole range of weird plugins and whatnot. I'm not going to go into that because it looks really messy. And then just a really weird looking EQ, so it's just leaving a little bit of the mid. So yeah, completely changed the sound from what it sounded like originally into just like a little wobble. On this one, there's some EQ. So yeah, I think this has been bounced and then a little bit more EQ again. But I use the stretch mode to stretch out the sound, reverse the sound, and got the first bass. And then the second one, you can see I've used the beats mode and then double timed it over here to create a different bass again. And then there's a little bit of EQ to cut the low end out and take some of that harshness out the tops as well. This is the main bass. It's kind of like a resampled faction bass. Using a very similar technique to this. Just kind of distorted it a lot, got some extra harmonics out of the sound. I think I actually reversed it as well. And then using an EQ, chopped out all of the top end, and then used erosion and an LFO or an envelope follower to then add some top end back into it. So it kind of changed the sound. And then we kind of just built a little groove with it, with the drums and the sub. And then at the end of the bar, added a couple of different basses. Yet again, another resample, but in this one it's got an EQ, cut low in the top out, and then I've used a tremolo to kind of just make it wobble. So yeah, so pretty cool bass, and then a little turnaround thing here. It's really weird, but it sounds cool. There we go again, same riff, and then a slightly different variation at the end, with nothing there. So after that point, there's then a switch up, which yet again, here's a bass that I've made myself and resampled and done some weird stuff with, and obviously got some different versions of it. Here's another one of my basses, which has just got some EQ on. Other than that, there's a divided bass, which has got some distortion. Again, I think it's going to be quite messy. Yeah, and a little bit of reverb. They're all Air Windows plugins, by the way. And then a little bit of EQ just to chop it out. And just obviously chopped up the bass and done something with the warp mode to kind of change it a little bit again. But other than that, I think that's all of the basses really. So essentially what I've done is built an original groove for the first 32 bars with the drums and the bass, kind of using both of those sort of tutorials. Built into another section again where the drums and the bass both progress and change. And then essentially from that point, you've got the main part of your tune done. It's about adding in all the effects, which I've removed for the time being, and all of the pads and all of that kind of stuff to then build back into, more sections and to accentuate specific sections, etc. But yeah, so just so you can hear the two sections, you've got section 1. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for the bass. On the bus, I've put my drums bus for some reason, but essentially it's just a bit of compression, a bit of EQ and distortion, and then just an EQ to chop out. What am I saying? Top all the time instead of chop for. Chop out all of the sub and a little bit of the this weird harmonic that I didn't like. So yeah, that's pretty much it really. Obviously, like I said, this is pretty old in terms of the techniques and stuff and the approach to the tune. So still interested in showing you guys it, and I'll take you through all the pads and the effects in the next one. Hopefully next week that will come out. But after that point, we can get on to doing some streaming. I want to do some stuff where you send me some stems and we work from them together, kind of on a stream and all of that kind of stuff. Just got to get through Christmas and the New Year, and then next year is going to be a real kickstart for the Patreon in January, and continuing to push out with the tutorials now that it's kind of working. Touch wood. So there you go. But look, I hope it's helpful as always, and I look forward to speaking to you guys soon.